All right, Linda, take it away.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. We're going to start with an overview of the Federal ABLE Act. Go to the next slide. And then we're going to talk about the National ABLE landscape, and then we'll give you some details about the Texas ABLE program. Let me begin with a few disclosures that I need to make, and one of the most important ones is if you hear me slurring words today, it's because I have temporary caps in, so please excuse me if that happens. And we just wanted to point out some important things that you need to do if you're interested in ABLE. Be sure and read the Texas ABLE Program Disclosure Statement and Participation Agreement that's available on our website at texasable.org. And while we can give you all kinds of information about how Texas ABLE works, we cannot provide legal, tax, financial, benefit, investment advice, or advice regarding penalty avoidance under applicable law. Contact your attorney or other advisor regarding your specific legal, tax, financial benefit, or investment situation. So thank you for making my attorneys happy by letting me read that. Let's talk a little bit about the Federal ABLE Act. Back in December of 2014, the U.S. Congress established the the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience, or ABLE Act, and it added Section 529A to the Internal Revenue Code to allow states to establish ABLE programs. And the purpose was to create a savings option for eligible people with disabilities, to allow those individuals to save money in a tax-advantaged account, to use the savings for qualified disability expenses, and to retain their eligibility for certain means-tested federal programs while saving up to $100,000 in an ABLE account if all requirements are met. So that was a significant change in making additional funds available to those individuals with disabilities without losing SSI and SSDI benefits. Just a quick overview of what's happening nationally with the ABLE programs. The first ABLE programs were established in June of 2016, and as of July 31st, 2018, over 39 states had opened ABLE programs on the map. The states in blue all have open ABLE programs at this point. There's about $100 million that has been invested with ABLE programs, and about $10 million has been withdrawn or distributed through those programs. There are approximately 21,000 accounts, and the average account size is approximately $5,000. So ABLE's come a long way since it was first established. The Texas ABLE program was created by the Texas Legislature and is established and maintained by the Texas Prepaid Higher Education Tuition Board with assistance from our office, the Texas Comptroller's Office. You can find the details of our program in the Texas Education Code, Chapter 54, Subchapter J. And just to note that our office out of our division also administers the state's Internal Revenue Code Section 529 College Savings Plan. So I'm sure some of you have heard of the Texas Tomorrow Fund, the Texas College Savings Plan. Those are programs that are also run out of our division. So as of May, the Texas ABLE program is open for enrollment. We'd like to play a quick video for you from our Comptroller, Glenn Hegar.
I'm excited to announce a new savings program for Texans with disabilities administered through my office. It's called the Texas Achieving a Better Life Experience, or ABLE program. With the Texas Able program, eligible Texans with disabilities and their families can save money for short and long-term disability-related expenses in a tax-advantaged account. For too long, many Texans with disabilities have been unable to work towards financial independence. Texans with disabilities now have a path towards a better future. Find out more today at texasable.org.
The Texas Able program statute required that we establish an advisory committee, and so we have a 7-member Texas Able advisory committee with people appointed by the Comptroller. And the statute requires that we have at least 1 member from each of the following groups: a person with a disability who qualifies for the program, a family member of a person with a disability who qualifies for the program, representatives of disability organizations, and representatives of the financial community. We have a great advisory committee. We are so fortunate with the people that are on that committee helping us as we're creating the program and advising us on the best path forward for some of these issues. So let's talk about what is ABLE. As I mentioned, ABLE accounts are in the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529A. They're tax advantage savings accounts, which means that when you deposit funds with ABLE, any earnings on those funds are tax-free if they're used for a qualified educational purpose. The purpose of the program is to encourage and assist individuals and families to save and pay for disability-related expenses to maintain an eligible individual's health, independence, and quality of life. Funds in an ABLE account are intended to supplement but not replace your other benefits. So if you are receiving Medicaid, SSI, SSDI, private insurance, or other benefits, you won't lose those benefits just because you've established an ABLE account. You have to meet certain eligibility requirements. Beneficiaries must be Texas residents. They had to have experienced the onset of the disability before the age of 26, and the age limit is a federal requirement. They also have to meet one of the following criteria to be eligible. Social Security Administration has determined that the individual is eligible to receive benefits through SSI or SSDI, or the individual has a written diagnosis from a licensed physician of their disability, or the individual has a condition on the Social Security Administration's list of compassionate allowances conditions. When you enroll in ABLE, you'll be asked certain questions about that to attest to the fact that you meet or your beneficiary meets those eligibility requirements. The key benefits of ABLE: you can maintain certain means tested federal benefits and still have an ABLE account. You can save up to $15,000 a year, and you'll see a little footnote there, even more if certain exceptions apply, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. And ABLE accounts up to $100,000 are generally disregarded for purposes of determining eligibility to receive government assistance or benefits. As I mentioned earlier, the withdrawals are tax-free, and these are post-tax contributions, but any earnings on those contributions are tax-free as long as you use it for qualified disability expense. So what are the benefits? I've said a number of times how nice it is for people with benefits to be able to save $100,000 without that counting toward their benefit eligibility. So you can have the $10,000, or I'm sorry, $2,000 in countable resources and $100,000 in an ABLE account. No impact on your federal benefits. I know I'm repeating this again and again, but we just think this is without a doubt the most important aspect of ABLE. And it's hard to believe, because for so many years that was so restricted, that now Congress has allowed for this capability for people to be able to save. So if you do exceed the $100,000, you can put more than $100,000 in an ABLE account. But if the beneficiary is receiving SSI or SSDI benefits, that $100,000 would be the max that you could save before it would impact your benefits. If you saved more than $100,000, your benefits would be temporarily suspended until you got back below that $100,000 limit. Medicaid benefits are not suspended, however. That just applies to SSI and SSDI. One thing we want to make you aware of is that the Federal ABLE Act allows for state Medicaid programs to recapture the amount of total medical assistance paid for an ABLE beneficiary after the date that the ABLE account was established for them. So upon the death of the beneficiary, an ABLE beneficiary, if Medicaid had been paying medical assistance for that beneficiary, state Medicaid programs have the right to come in and recapture some of those funds. That recapture will not occur until all qualified disability expenses, including funeral and burial expenses, have been paid. Who can open an ABLE account? An eligible individual with a disability can establish an ABLE account for themselves as long as they're 18 years of age and can manage his or her own account. Or you can have an authorized legal representative on an account. You'll hear us refer to that as an ALR. That can be a parent, legal guardian, or other fiduciary, such as someone acting under a power of attorney, who can establish and manage an account for a minor child, an individual who cannot exercise signature authority over an account, or someone who just chooses to establish an account but not exercise signature authority. On our website at texasable.org, you will find a limited power of attorney form that you can use to establish power of attorney for an ABLE account. It is limited just to the Texas ABLE program. Opening an account. Opening an account is easy. It is an entirely online enrollment process. There's no enrollment fee, so there's no building that you can go to, no brick and mortar or bank location to establish an account. It's a completely self-certification / self-attestation process where you attest to the fact that you are eligible and give us information about why you're eligible. Now, we do have the right to come back in and request information from you to prove that eligibility. We want to be very careful that if an account is established by for a beneficiary by an authorized legal representative, that person has the legal authority to establish that account for that beneficiary. If you go to our website at texasable.org, you'll find program details. There is a program disclosure statement and participation agreement. You need to read that thoroughly. It's a long legal document, but it's a very important document. We have FAQs out on our website of questions that we frequently get. There's an eligibility wizard on the website that you can use to determine whether or not you're eligible for participation in Texas ABLE. There's an informational brochure on the website. Lots of information in that program disclosure statement about the investment options. You can also call the 1-800 number to talk to the customer service team, or you can contact them on our website, and you can also sign up to receive updates about Texas Able on that website. Control of an ABLE account by federal law. The designated beneficiary is the account owner, even if the account is opened by someone else. So if an account is established by an authorized legal representative, they will have the ability to execute transactions on the account, but the actual account owner is the designated beneficiary. Also, by federal law, there can be only one ABLE account for a designated beneficiary. The only exception might be that if you had opened, for instance, an ABLE account in another state and now you want to roll it to the Texas ABLE program, you might have two ABLE accounts in place at one time. You might have the one in the other state while you were transitioning those funds to Texas ABLE, and then you'd have to close the other account. Or if you're doing a program-to-program transfer, the person that controls the account will determine how their funds are invested. There are fees for establishing a Texas ABLE program. There's a $4 monthly account maintenance fee. If you opt to have your program documents, such as quarterly statements or communications with the program, through electronic delivery, there is no fee for that. If you prefer to receive those items in the mail instead, there's a $10 fee. The exception to that is tax documents, 1099s. You're going to receive those by paper without having to pay a fee. And then there are a few other fees, as you can see on the screen. One important fee is the check processing fee for each withdrawal by check is $5 for each withdrawal. And there's $1 per ACH fee for each withdrawal in excess of 2 per month. There's no rollover fee, no fees for things like change of beneficiary, no enrollment fee. Contributing to an account is easy. There's an online contribution process. Anyone can contribute to the account. The eligible individual, a family member, a friend, a trust. Contributions can be made by check, automatic contribution plan, electronic funds transfer, payroll deduction, or as I mentioned earlier, the rollover from another program or a program-to-program transfer. The contribution limits are $50 minimum investment in an ABLE account to establish the account. And then after that, you can make contributions as low as $25. There is a $15,000 per year contribution limit that's set by the federal law, unless the exceptions in Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 apply. That opened it up to individuals that are beneficiaries of the plan and do not have a retirement fund option that they can contribute to. They are allowed to contribute more to an ABLE account. And the limit is based on the lesser of their annual compensation or the household income. And so right now that household income for this year is and actually it looks back 1 year, so it'd be the 2017 is $12,060. So if you do not have the ability to contribute to a retirement plan through your job, you could put in up to an additional $12,060 as long as that's not more than your annual compensation. So there's a $370,000 maximum contribution limit. I keep talking about the $100,000 just because for those of you that are receiving benefits, that's the limit you want to be aware of, is $100,000. But if that is not an issue, then you can put up to $370,000 in an ABLE account at $15,000 per year, unless the exceptions apply. We will monitor for excess contributions on the primary limits, so on the $15,000. We won't let you exceed that unless you have told us that you are eligible for the exception. But if you haven't told us that, we will help you monitor the $15,000. We don't want you to lose eligibility because of receiving an excess contribution. So we'll help you keep track of that. There is an online gifting tool, so you can send emails out to friends and family members that might want to help by contributing to this account. And it tells them how to make that. Again, there's still a $15,000 limit no matter who all is making contributions. It's a combined limit unless those exceptions apply. The investment portion, when you put money in an ABLE account, you will designate how you want those funds invested. The Texas Prepaid Higher Education Tuition Board, a state agency, was designated as the entity to regulate the ABLE program. So we've got 7 members on that board. It's chaired by the Comptroller. There are 7 members, 2 appointed by the governor and 4 other members that are appointed by the lieutenant governor. They are the ones that have worked with the investment consultant to determine what the investment options should be for Texas ABLE. They have selected 4 different investment allocation options for you to consider when you establish an account. One is called the aggressive allocation, and you can see that that's a little more heavily weighted in stocks, equities. So it's a little bit higher risk. Moderate allocation is a little more balanced between fixed income and stocks. Moderate is more heavily weighted toward fixed income. And then we've got the bank savings account option. That is an FDIC insured bank savings option. So you'll pick one or more of these options at the time you establish an account, saying, when I put money into Texas ABLE, this is where I want that money to go. And as I said earlier, we cannot advise you on that. Our customer service department cannot advise you on that. So find someone you trust if you are not comfortable making those decisions. And we'll also give you some resources at the end of the presentation. The Texas State Securities Board has put out some nice information to help people in making investment decisions. This is just a chart depiction of the pie charts that we just looked at, showing how the different investment options that our board has selected are distributed within these different allocations. And there are also these fund managers charge annual asset-based fees that you would be paying in addition to the fees that you saw earlier. And no matter whose plan you invest in, these are charges that you're going to see. So you may see different investment options, but they're all going to have underlying asset-based fees. To make withdrawals, you do that online. When you establish an account, you're able to go in and set up account access with your own password. And through that, you can do lots of different types of transactions. So you can do a withdrawal through that process. You can request a paper check or an electronic transfer of funds directly into your personal checking or savings accounts. Paper checks take 7 to 10 business days. Electronic transfers 3 to 5 business days. One thing that you can do, we don't yet have a debit card with the Texas ABLE program. We are working on trying to get that option available to people. But in the meantime, one option for you would be to do an electronic transfer to your personal checking account where you might already have a debit account, or even establish a new checking account with a debit account that is devoted entirely to Texas ABLE to help you keep track of your expenses. But you can pay expenses like medical expenses directly from your ABLE account by going online. If you make a withdrawal from your ABLE account that is not a qualified disability expense, and we're going to talk about what those are in a few minutes, that is subject to ordinary income tax on any earnings. So if you put in $10,000 and you took that $10,000 out, the whole $10,000 wouldn't be subject to income tax because you've already paid income tax on that. But you would have to pay income tax on any earnings you had on that $10,000 that you withdrew. And there's also an additional 10% tax on those earnings as well. The designated beneficiary or their authorized legal representative is fully responsible, I warned you about that slur thing, for determining if a withdrawal is qualified or non-qualified and for any applicable federal and state benefit or tax consequences. They're also responsible for maintaining records necessary to respond to any questions related to those withdrawals from the IRS, Social Security, or other state or federal agencies. So we're not going to ask you, when you ask us for money from the ABLE program, we're not going to ask you if it's qualified or non-qualified. We're not going to ask you to submit an invoice to us. You'll have to keep those records yourself in case you were to be audited by IRS. And we do report monthly. We are required by law to report ABLE accounts monthly to the Social Security Administration. So they will see that information and know that you're in the ABLE program. So what expenses can you pay from an ABLE account? ABLE accounts can be used to pay for qualified disability expenses that are incurred at a time when the ABLE beneficiary is an eligible individual that relate to the beneficiary's blindness or disability and are for the benefit of the beneficiary in maintaining or improving his or her health, independence, or quality of life. That language is coming from the Internal Revenue Code. It's very broad in nature, so let's look at the next page. These are the expenses that were listed in the Internal Revenue Code, and they are very, very general in nature. As long as you can justify, if you were to be audited by the Internal Revenue Service, that you spent money on education for a beneficiary with a disability, you know, and transportation, oversight, and monitoring, legal fees, it's pretty wide open as far as how you can use that money. One thing I did want to point out, you see the little footnote there by housing. If you withdraw money from your ABLE account, for most expenses, you can carry that money forward from month to month. And Social Security, Texas Medicaid, as long as you can show them that that money came from your ABLE account, they will not count it as a resource. The one exception is housing expense. If you withdraw money for housing, for rent, for a house payment, for utilities, for housing repairs, you must spend that money on that expense in the same month that you withdraw from your ABLE account. Otherwise, it will be counted as a resource. So just be aware of that. So very easy to get started with Texas ABLE. Go out to the texasable.org website, read that program disclosure statement. You can take the eligibility quiz. Before you sit down to consider enrollment, you'll want to gather a few things. You'll need Social Security numbers, contact information, dates of birth, bank information. And then you just click on enroll, and once you are enrolled, you can contribute, select investment options, make withdrawals, and update your account information conveniently from the online portal. These are some resources that will help. The Texas ABLE Act, if you'd like to look at that, you can find that online. Social Security has published a program operations manual, the POMs they call them, for ABLE. They go into some detail about what Social Security will be looking for. Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services ABLE Guidance is a helpful resource. IRS publication 907 on the tax treatment of ABLE accounts. And then earlier I mentioned the Texas State Securities Board has a couple of resources for investors. So if you want to find out a little bit more information about guiding you on making your investments, that's a good place to go. So. There's all the legal disclosures my lawyers would want me to share with you. I'll give you a little time to look that over. We've got a program manager, North Star Financial Services, that we contract with that helps us administer this program. And North Star's affiliate, Northern Lights, is the one that distributes the program for us, and it's administered, the program itself is administered by Gemini Fund Services, and no part of an account or the principal invested is insured or guaranteed, with the exception of that bank option that I mentioned earlier. When you're investing, you've got the risk, so there is some risk involved in doing the investments. Now, the bank option has almost no risk to it. The fees range from 25 basis points to 65 basis points. And then we talked about some of the other additional fees that are involved. Once again, just be sure and read that program disclosure statement. So that concludes my presentation. We are very happy to answer questions. Anna Millette is here with me as well. She's our ABLE outreach specialist. Anna goes around the state making presentations and doing exhibits. If you would like to have Anna consider coming to one of your events, please reach out to us and let's talk about that. So we're happy to answer any questions you got.
We have several questions already. Is this email address on the web that people are seeing right now, customer service at texasable.org, a good place to reach you, Anna? Or is there okay, great. First question, can you talk a little bit about the difference between the ABLE accounts and special needs trust accounts?
I can talk very little about it because I'm not an expert on that. I will tell you that Haley Grill with the ARC made a presentation at an event we were at not too long ago, and she really provided some good information comparing the differences. And one of the things that she mentioned is that, and I'm not going to get too specific because, like I say, this is not my area of expertise, that there are some expenses that you cannot pay from a trust. Housing was one that she mentioned that you could pay with ABLE. So she was saying that it does not hurt to have both, to have a trust and to have an ABLE account as well, to give you more flexibility.
If I only have $100,000 can be saved for the individual with the disability, should I put the $100,000 in an ABLE account or the special needs or trust?
Well, you can only do $15,000 a year in ABLE unless your beneficiary does not have a retirement account option. Then you could put up to the $27,060. So if you had $100,000 to invest and you wanted to do that now, you might want to look again at a combination of both ABLE and a special needs trust.
Okay. Can anyone contribute to an ABLE account? Does this, oh, you said anyone could,
yes,
I think. So
yes.
Does this include a family member or a relative that's overseas?
Yes, they can. Like I say, we're going to look at that aggregate limit of all contributions and make sure it's not exceeded, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Let me get to the next one here. So the ABLE accounts are not with local banks. The funds are held solely with the Texas Comptroller's Office and are invested in options chosen, I guess, on that website, right?
What happens when you invest money with the program? Our program manager has established an account with SunTrust Bank, so that's where the money goes until it's distributed to the investment options that you select. So it isn't, the money is not held by the comptroller's office. It's held in these trust accounts for the individual investors.
But they don't get to select what bank is holding that money.
No, what
Right.
they'll select is whether they want to do the aggressive allocation or the moderate allocation or the conservatively moderate allocation. They'll tell us how to invest that money, and then those investment managers, for instance, Vanguard is one of the investment managers, so if you selected an option that had Vanguard funds in it, those funds would be transferred to Vanguard for investment.
Oh, I see. I see. Why is the $100,000 generally disregarded? In what circumstances is it not disregarded?
What I'm quoting from there is the Federal ABLE Act, and that's the language that they use, that it is generally disregarded for federal means tested benefits. So we know that for SSI, SSDI, it is disregarded. One exception perhaps would be HUD. HUD is still trying to decide whether or not they're going to disregard it. So there could be some benefits that people have out there that we don't know a whole lot about, and so we would tell them they would need to talk to those advisors to see whether or not they would count ABLE. But we do know that SSI and SSDI do not, correct.
Very good. Hang on one second, I'm reading. I want to make sure this sounds like English when I read it. I have a son with a disability. Hang on one second. Okay, I have a son with a disability and 3 children, and one of those children have a disability. However, he can withdraw for work expenses and medical purses. Will this work? I think what she's asking is if there's money in that works, it says I-80, so I don't know if that means they work 80 hours a week or what, but can they withdraw expenses, medical expenses, for either of the disabled individuals, or is it going to be only that person the account's under?
Correct. Each account would have to have its own unique beneficiary, so there would have to be a beneficiary for the son and then a separate one for his child with a disability if you wanted to use ABLE for their expenses.
Okay. We've got a couple of people that may have not received the PowerPoint in advance. I sent it out late morning, so I will send it out again just in case. So just FYI, people, you'll get it. Let's see. What bank holds the deposits that are in the bank savings account?
That is with Bank of the West, and it's an omnibus savings account. So your money goes in and is pooled with other individuals' money, but we track separately your portion of that investment and what your earnings are on that investment.
Okay, very good. And if someone is currently older than 26 but was designated disabled by Social Security before they were 26, are they eligible for the ABLE account?
Yes, no matter what your age is, as long as the disability occurred before the age of 26, you would be eligible.
Okay. Did you have to be receiving Social Security
No.
to be eligible? You could be like in a special education program and have multiple disabilities but not be receiving.
Yes, you do not have to be receiving benefits. On the eligibility page, there were 3 different ways that people could determine an eligibility. They are receiving SSI or SSDI.
Let me go back to the page real quick. Does it do the beginning?
Keep going back. It's that one that's got 3 blue boxes there. No,
There we
right, right there.
Okay.
So for the following criteria would deem eligibility, SSA is determined that the individual is eligible to receive benefits through SSI or SSDI, or the individual has a written diagnosis from a licensed physician of blindness or a medically determinable physical or mental impairment. And look at the language down at the bottom of page 13, expands on that a little bit. Or they have a condition on the Social Security Administration's list of compassionate allowances conditions. So go out there and do a search for that, and it will bring up a whole list of compassionate allowances conditions that also would make you eligible for ABLE.
Okay. Next question. I am a special education parent liaison and would like to make the information available to families. Or is this on your website?
The website has a lot of information available. This particular presentation is not out there, but there are resources out there that have this information, including the program disclosure, the FAQs, the brochure. So, and we're happy to, if you want to reach out to us and request any items, please do so at that email address at the end of the presentation, and we'll be sure and get you resources.
And since the money is not insured by the FDIC, how does a family know the money is safe?
Well, you will be taking a risk of investment if you participate in the program. The only one that is FDIC insured is the bank savings account option. That is FDIC insured. But the other ones are investments. You're investing in the stock market. And yes, you know, if you invest in the stock market, you can lose money. So absolutely.
Anna, is there, that's the last question, at least for right now. We did have somebody, Rita, shared with us Haley Greer's presentation. So I have the link and I've sent it to everybody. So if you want to compare the ABLE account with a trust account, you can do that. But Anna, did you have anything you might want to share to add to what Linda has provided?
Other than that, we're happy for any sort of outreach opportunities you may have, presentations, doing events, expos, working with those school districts. Please reach out via that email that you see on the screen, or give our customer service folks a call, and they can direct you, and we'll get that information through them. So absolutely.
Very good, very good. Well, I will make sure and send this to everyone again to make sure they have the presentation, and we give us a few days and we will upload it to our YouTube channel and then provide you that link. I will email everybody that's attended and not attended, because we had a few people not attended. We did have a nice group though. So we will be in touch. I just had another quick question. So just for Anna to get in touch with you, just email this customer service email address that's on the screen. Is that right?
You can do that. And then also, if you visit our website, texasable.org, and you actually go to the Contact Us page,
Okay.
there's a couple of different options. And there's actually, you can reach us for outreach. There's an email specific for outreach on that page as well. So either one will work, but the website's a great resource.
Well, thank you, ladies, both for joining us today, Anna and Linda from the Comptroller's Office, and thank you all for attending. So we are finished.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the Governor's Office inviting us to participate.
Absolutely.
Thank
I'm
you
glad
so
that you were
much.
able to do this for us. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.